My name's Michael. I'm going to be doing a share tonight. I'm a volunteer at EDP and Together. I'm a bit nervous. I've been building up to this for days, and well, here I am. I've been clean nearly a year now, and I suffered with addiction on and off for 20 years or so. I'll tell you a brief little bit of history. I was born in Liverpool. My mum brought me down here when I was 2. I'm very grateful for that because back in the 80s things weren't very good in Liverpool and stuff like that. I've got a massive family. My mum's one of 10, so I've got lots of aunties and uncles, and I've got a brother and a sister. Well, I did have a brother, he passed away years ago, Jake. I've got a sister as well. I had a good childhood. I had a really good childhood, you know. My mum did the best she could, as any other parent would with their children, and but I grew up around things that really I shouldn't have grew up around, and I think that's where my behaviour stemmed from, really. I was a very naughty child. I wanted attention a lot at school, and I was the clown of the class, and I think that carried on through my teens, and I first started experimenting with drugs, cannabis, when I was 16, and then I started doing ecstasy. Really, I was doing it all the time. I lost a really good friend, he drowned. There's quite a lot of us, and my experimentation with drugs got further and further from there. And I had lots of jobs on and off, but I could never keep a job. You know, I was just interested in going out partying all the time. And I didn't have any respect for anyone, especially the people that loved me, you know, but most of all I didn't have any respect for myself, and I was very lost. And when I was 19 I got a job with my dad as a builder's labourer, and I loved it, you know, and I stopped smoking cannabis, but then I swapped that for alcohol, and my alcohol used to start off with, it wasn't bad, you know. I'd drink sort of every day after work, but at the weekends I would go out partying, and when I mean partying, I would party hard. I was always the one that wanted to be the centre of attention, you know. And then I stopped working with my dad when I was 21. My brother passed away, Jake, in a car accident, very sudden, and his friend, and I think that's where my path of self-destruction got worse. I did not care about anyone, not even my family. I just cared about chasing the next drug, really. And I had jobs in between, but I still couldn't keep a job down, you know. And I think one thing I suffered a lot was trauma. I didn't know how to deal with trauma. And every anniversary, because Jake died 12 days after his birthday, so his birthday and the anniversary of his death was really close. So I used to just go out and obliterate myself every year, and it became bad because really I wasn't doing it in his memory anymore. I was just using that as an excuse, you know, and that didn't sit well with me, you know, but I didn't realise it at the time. And I had a few relationships in between and stuff like that, and I had jobs as well, but again I couldn't keep a stable job because I just wanted to go out and party. And that went on till I was about 29, and then I met someone, and she fell pregnant, and I really thought that was going to change my life because I always wanted to have children, you know. And how naive was I thought that having a child would be the answer to my problems, you know, and it wasn't. And we moved in together and we got a flat, and that's where my addiction got worse, because I didn't have to go around sofa surfing anymore, or partying and stuff like that. I had my own place, so I could hide it even more, you know. Well, I couldn't hide it from myself. And you know, Devon come along, and you know, there was lots of problems in my relationship, and eventually that broke down. And Devon stayed with me, and you know, normally in a situation when the parents split up, the child goes with the mother, but Devon stayed with me, and my behaviour calmed down, you know, because I was a single dad and I had the responsibility to look after Devon. And I also got a lot of help from my family, like my mum in particular, and I used that to my advantage. I learned a lot about manipulation in the last year, and yeah, and then I met someone else, you know, and I really thought she was the love of my life. There's always a saying when, you know, you think you've met the one, and early into our relationship she fell pregnant, and yeah, I was madly, deeply in love with her, you know, and I would have done anything for her, and it caused a lot of friction, you know, between me and her and my family, and I caused a lot of that friction because my behaviour was getting erratic, you know. I was still using and stuff like that. Amphetamine was my main drug of choice then, and alcohol, and we moved in and we got a house together, and you know, the dream, that's what everyone dreams of, a family and everything, and I was still doing what I was doing, you know, and I didn't realise how much of a manipulated person I was towards people, especially my partner at the time. And a few months later, I had an attempt on my life. I'm not very proud of it. I tried to jump in front of a train, and that was one of the darkest moments in my life. But at that moment in time, I didn't want to be alive anymore, because I knew I was killing the people around me, you know, and I thought it would have been better if I wasn't here, which was a silly and pathetic excuse, really, you know. And I spent 3 months in a mental health ward, voluntary, and then I got help, and I went to a place, my first attempt at rehab, and I was there for 3 months, and it wasn't really a rehab. Now I've been to like last year I went to a proper treatment centre. It was just a dry house, and I didn't get any therapy when I was there. All I did was I learnt how to play snooker, which I could play anyway, and I learnt how to fish, and I was constantly arguing with my partner who stood by me, and my son was with my sister at the time, and he was being put up for adoption, so there's lots of strain, lots of stress and everything on me and all my family, my sister. And when I came out, you know, I thought that was it. It was done and dusted, you know, and I was fine, I was healed, and you know, I wasn't healed at all, you know. And I came out and I was living the dream again, you know, and I was more of a parent to Carter. Obviously Carter was born, and then Bailey was born, my other son, Carter and Bailey, and I had a stepdaughter as well. And I was doing all the things, you know, a dad would do and everything. But then throughout the duration of those months, my relationship with my partner got worse, you know. We just didn't communicate, you know, and we acted like children in the end. And unfortunately that relationship broke down, and I really thought at that point then I would probably start using again, because I just thought that would break me, but I didn't. I stayed clean for another 7 months, and at that point I was 2 years clean. But again, I'd never changed any of my behaviours, you know. I was just still that same old Mike, but I just wasn't using, and I wasn't drinking, and I was still hurting the people around me that I loved and knew loved me. And yeah, one day I just I went out and I went on a bender, and yeah, I think I enjoyed just being on that path of self-destruction again, you know. And for months I carried on, and then in the end I lost contact with Carter and Bailey, my 2 sons, because of my behaviour. And I was told by the judge that until I changed my behaviour I wouldn't be able to see them again, and that crucified me, because the last memory I've got of them has been taken away by police with tasers and everything. So yeah, that was a very painful moment, and really it should have hit me then to sort myself out again. But I think I went another few weeks, Christmas and everything, and I went on a complete bender. And then at that point I decided to get my act together again, and I was going to meetings, I was going to the gym. Obviously being a pet, Devon was still living with me, you know. I was very fortunate that I still had Devon, and I went another 5 months without using or drinking, and I got turned down for legal aid, and but again I think for weeks and weeks before I relapsed I was looking for excuses, you know, and that was one of the excuses when I got turned down for legal aid. And then after that I went on basically an 18-month bender completely, you know. I had periods of abstinence again, but I knew at one point, you know, on my knees again, you know, and I knew I had to sort my life out because I was at death's door mentally and physically. Sooner or later, it was going to kill me. And again, I was just draining everyone around me, you know, that poor me situation. And then again, I went back to, I was still engaged with Together, and I said to my key worker, I said, I need to go to rehab again, you know, but I need to go to a proper rehab this time. And I was very fortunate. I was doing my groups and everything, and a few months later, I went to visit a place in Weston-super-Mare, and it's called Sefton Park Treatment Centre, and I went and had an interview, and I had a look around the place, and that was the place for me, because I knew I needed therapy. If I could get some therapy, then I knew I could try and not get rid of, but unleash some of these demons that I'd kept inside for like nearly 20 years of my life. And yeah, I got accepted, but they say Rome wasn't built in a day, and it took about another 3 months for me to actually go to treatment. And at that point, when I didn't have Devlin, I was hitting it hard again, you know. I was going out, not partying, I was just going around friends' house, and I spent some really dark times in this flat, you know, and I had bad thoughts, terrible thoughts, you know, and but I knew if I hung on, then I was hopefully going to make it, you know. And I got to treatment on the 21st of June, and I was supposed to go the day before, but unfortunately my key worker wasn't very well, and yeah, I panicked badly, because when I plan things, if they don't go to plan, normally things go. And I had like 17 cans of cider, what I was going to give to my mum's partner, and they were talking to me, but you know, and then in the end I took them round to my mum's, and I said, oh, you know, I don't want these. And then the next day I had to catch the train to Weston-super-Mare, you know, and I had to say goodbye to Devlin, which was very hard, because I was really worried about leaving him. I knew he was going to be looked after by my mum and my sister and his gran and everyone, but leaving him for 3 months was I knew was going to be really, really hard. And so when I got to Sefton Park, you know, and when I got there, it was very daunting the first day, you know. It was a Friday, and that's when they all get a bit of leeway and they can do what they want, not do what they want, but there's certain things, restrictions are lifted. There's not therapy at the weekend, and I think I had to get checked in, and I had to be tested and everything, and everyone was really welcoming. And the first day I was there, I think I learnt more than what I did in 12 weeks of me being in the first rehab that I went to. So that says it all for the place that I was in. And it was a bit surreal the first night, you know. Everyone was really friendly, but, you know, very wary at the same time, because, you know, it's a new person coming in, and they don't know me and I don't know them, you know. And I was never naive to think that I was going to go in there and everyone was going to get on like an house on fire, and you know, that was true, because you know, and within the first couple of weeks when I settled in, I didn't realise how much of a live wire I was. I got, you know, a bull in a china shop, my counsellor called me, because I was just constant, you know. I was loud and I was rude, and I didn't know I was doing it, you know. It's things that have probably been there all my life, but I've never noticed. And you know, people would speak and I would interrupt, and I'd say sorry, and they'd say, you know, carry on. So I carried on, so therefore I really wasn't sorry for interrupting someone. I wanted to just talk about me. And then, you know, I got told a few home truths, because I used to have, like, the first 3 weeks I was there, I was in Alpha Group, and we got taught about challenging, how we could challenge people in a healthy way, and so we can come across with our point. And yeah, so then for the first week or so I was going around doing silly challenges to people, and you know, it was a bit sad really, but then there was other people encouraging me to do these challenges, so I was a bit misguided, and, you know, I was very naive. But I think I got attached to a few people in there. There's a couple of people I was very wary of, you know, and I expect they were very wary of me as well, because I was loud. And then after 2 weeks I went up to the next stage, and that's where the real hard work started. That's when we went into therapy, like group therapy, and it was like every day in the morning from 10 o'clock, and we had a break, and then it was right till for like 3. And it was very intense therapy. Normally it was themed every week. We'd talk about mental health, certain things, boundaries and stuff, because I had no boundaries whatsoever when I went into Sefton Park. I don't think I had boundaries ever in my life. You know, I thought a boundary was you don't go out, as a sign saying don't go in there, but I didn't realise about personal space and what you do say to people and what you shouldn't say to people, you know, and how they, you know, and I think that's one of the most important things what I learned is that, you know, we all got boundaries and we have, you know, to keep them, we can keep ourselves safe, you know, and, you know, as the weeks went on, I started to, I used to have a one-on-one session with my counsellor every week, and she was amazing, you know, she sussed me out as soon as I walked in there. Obviously that's what they're trained to do, and she told me that I was very good at emotional manipulation, you know, and I didn't have a clue what that meant, and, you know, she told me I could easily emotionally manipulate someone without even noticing, you know, and then I had to do like a life story from when I was like 0 to 15, and I've got a good memory, you know, I still have now. I can remember the first time I swore when I was 2, you know, and some people wrote it differently. They wrote snippets about their life, but for me to do it, I had to write everything about my life from when I was, you know, the earliest memory to 15, and it was 9 pages long, you know, and I had to read that to my counsellor, and you know, my counsellor got a bit tearful, you know, what I wrote, and then at the end of it, she said I was still hiding things. She said you're being honest with me, but you're still being emotionally dishonest with yourself. There's still something there. So and I couldn't get to grips with that. I didn't know how to deal with that, and I think my behaviours of me being at school, I started acting out again, you know, for attention, and, you know, yeah, so it was pretty tough, and there's lots of stuff that went on in treatment. People clashed a hell of a lot, you know. It was like EastEnders sometimes, you know, people in the corner having a gossip, you know, and I'm guilty. I was one of those persons, you know, and there was lots of unrest, lots of people coming in, lots of people leaving, and, you know, stuff like that. People that got close to each other. So 9 times out of 10 every day, emotions were running high, you know, and there's a few incidents in there, you know, when someone brought in substances when they shouldn't have, you know, and there was exclusive relationships going on when there shouldn't have been, you know, and we had to have big meetings, you know, and we had to call each other out, and, you know, one day we had to sit in a room and everyone had to speak and say how they felt, and someone called me out, and normally I didn't know how I would respond to it, and I responded in a way that I would years ago, and that's one thing my counsellor taught me how to address, is that when someone's saying something to me, is it what they're saying in the here and the now, or is it a criticism from my past, and that's why I'm acting. So I learned out, basically I had to learn how to respond, you know, and that's got me very far, and it still helps me now. And then I had to do like a life story of when I was 15 to the present, and I was really worried about writing that, because it was about where my addiction stemmed from, you know, and it was about Jake, and I had to write about, I think I did about, all in all I did 23 pages, and 5 pages of them about when my brother died, you know, and that was really hard for me to do, and I read it to my counsellor, and she gave me a massive cuddle, you know, and she said that's what I wanted, you know, you've gone from 9 pages of being honest, but then you've gone to 23 pages, and that's the honesty what I wanted, and to hear from Mike. And, you know, it was hard because I had to read it out to all my peers in my group, and then I had to get feedback from them, and then, you know, and I had people in tears, you know, and it was overwhelming, you know, but I was happy because I got everything, not everything, but I got things out that I needed to get out that I don't think I could have shared with my family, you know, because as much as I love my family, there's certain things that sometimes we agree on and sometimes we disagree on, but that's just how families are. And yeah, and then I started working in the kitchen as well. And I got up to kitchen manager, and they realised that how calm I was when I was in the kitchen, when I was in treatment, you know, and they turned around and said, you can be really hyper in the day, Mike, but when you're in the kitchen doing your job and everything, you're a really calm, different person. And I really did enjoy it, you know, and the chef took me under his wing, and I did a couple of days in the kitchen, and where we did proper food like what you'd do in a restaurant. And because he's a trained chef, but he was in Sefton as well, like, so it showed me that if you work at something, you know, you can get further forward in your life. And so then a few weeks later, you know, I left Sefton Park, and I had to do what I'm sort of doing now. I had to do a share about my life with all my peers and everything. And I built up some really good friendships in there, you know. And but then there were some people in there that I clashed with, and you know, I was worried about what they would say, and I think that's what I've worried about all my life, is what others think. But then I thought, at the end of the day, you know, that I'm probably never going to see some of these people again in my life, you know, and I can accept that. You know, sometimes not everyone everyone doesn't have to. So you know, and just take it as it is, you know. And everyone gave me feedback of how they felt about me that day, you know. And again, it blew me completely, you know, that I am a good person, you know. But when I left, I didn't want to change who I was, because, you know, I'm always going to be me. It's just all the behaviours that I've exhibited over the years, I needed to change and address. And yeah, when I come out of treatment, I managed to get home, and I got home to see Devon, you know, and I made his day because I picked him up from school, you know. And that was because I'd missed Devon so much, you know what I mean. It going 12 weeks, I've seen him twice in 12 weeks, and that was the hardest 12 weeks of my life, you know, because he's been with me since he was a baby. And seeing him, you know, made it all worth the while, knowing that what I'd, you know, because it wasn't plain sailing when I was in treatment, you know. I had some dark times in there, you know. Sometimes when I wanted to run off and I wanted to go and use, you know, but at least I was expressing how I was feeling to my counsellors. And because normally I would never tell anyone how I was feeling. I don't do feelings. I use on feelings. I used to drink on feelings. So now I was aware of when I'm feeling like I want to use or something, I can reach out, you know. And that's one of the biggest tools what I've learned, is that if I'm struggling, I need to reach out to people, you know, that are going to help me, and not keep it inside. Because when I keep it inside, you know, that's when that button, I'll be careful what I say, but there's a button that I normally push, and it ends in disaster. And I think a week after me being out of treatment, I wanted to carry on cooking, so I applied to go to college. And I went for an interview, and when I was doing my interview, the woman asked me about my, you know, past and everything, and I was completely 100% honest and told her that I'd been to treatment. Because, you know, for me, going further in my life and my recovery, being honest is the best thing for me. And I told her about where I'd been and how I found a passion for cooking, you know. And she turned around and said she was actually, you know, that was inspirational for someone to be honest. You know, some people might not, you know. So, and then I got told I got accepted for the course, and but it was a week later. So again, I was really nervous about starting college and everything, but I did it, you know. And I've cooked some absolutely amazing dishes at college, you know, and I've made some good friends at college. But you know, and I really thought that maybe I might come out and might slip a bit, you know, but I didn't. I thought, I've got to nail this, because if I don't nail it and continue to practice what I learned while I was in treatment, then it would all be for nothing. And yeah, and then I started doing, I got asked by Together if I wanted to do some volunteering and stuff like that, and I went on a course and I passed my course, and now I'm a volunteer as well, you know. So within 2 months of me being out, I was at college. Excuse me, needed a drink. When I was at college and I was doing volunteering, and I'd passed all these things, you know, and I was literally amazed that, you know, I'd come out and I'd achieved these things. And it's, you know, I was struggling still, you know. I used to write a diary when I was in treatment every day, because that's what they wanted you to do. If you couldn't express your feelings verbally, write it down. And every week, you know, we'd read everyone our diaries, you know. And sometimes, you know, I said some unpleasant things about people in there, but I had to, because often I don't want to say it to someone verbally, because then if I couldn't deal with it at the time, it would have ended in disaster. And to be honest, I've not really wrote in my diary. I did for the first month or so when I come out, but sometimes if I'm having a bad day, I will go in my diary, and if I want to write rubbish, I'll write rubbish, you know, because it's better than saying it to someone, you know. And you know, everything's been going smoothly, and then obviously with this virus, you know, this lockdown, it hit me like a ton of bricks, you know, and I have struggled 100%. I'm not going to lie. I've help from my mum. You know, Devon sees my mum all the time because she lives round the corner, and he's got his gran over the road, and he normally stay there every night, every weekend to see his mum. And I'd have bits where I could go off and do my thing, you know, like college, and obviously college has stopped because of the virus. And I was doing my volunteering. I was help running the relapse prevention group, and then I was doing a Flourish recovery calf as well. So everything hit me out, you know, it was all out of sync, and I struggled the first week or so. I was really finding it hard because I spent my before I went to treatment. I spent some dark times in this flat, you know, and that's all I kept thinking was all I'm doing again is I'm being clean and I'm not doing anything with my life. And I knew that wasn't the case, you know, and that's when I knew I was self-sabotaging. I learned a lot about self-sabotaging because when things go good in my life, I always expect something to go bad. So I let bad things, I either do bad things or let bad things happen. But this time I thought that's not the case, and I'm not going to let that happen. You know, I put so much hard work and time and effort into getting where I am today. And that's not with the help, you know, and thanks to everyone else helping me, you know, and it's been tough with Devlin, you know. He struggled badly, you know, because for us as adults, it's quite easy because, you know, we're adult and we know how to deal with things. But being a child, he's only 7. He's at times he's been happy, and you know he's been sad, and he thinks that he can't see people, and I've taken him away from people, and trying to explain that to a 7-year-old is sometimes it's really got to me, you know, and I felt that I've failed. And then I've had to get you know, I think I needed reassurance from my mum and that lot, and I know I haven't failed, and I know I'm not the only one with this lockdown who's been going through this, you know. And but most of all, I've reached out to people and told them how I'm feeling, you know. And there's been times where I've wanted to use, and I'm not going to lie, but I now know that if I'd relapse now, then it would all be for nothing, because sooner or later, you know, this lockdown thing's going to get eased. Things are probably going to be different for a long time, you know, months to come, you know, till this gets sorted, if it gets sorted. But I think I've learned mentally that I can do this, you know, and I've still got help and I've still got support, you know. I speak to one of my colleagues. I phone them up every week, and I have a chat with them, just like a check-in, and that, you know, and just to look forward to do that. That means, you know, and doing this now, you know, I just want to I hope people that are watching, you know, and if you are struggling, you know, to reach out to me or to the professional people that you need to, because it is hard, you know, and try and write a diary if you can. If you can't reach out to people, try and write yourself a diary and write out like how you're feeling, and then a few days later go back to it and then think, you know, maybe if I did those things what I wrote in the diary, then things could have been different, and it might have been for good or for bad. Because next month, you know, I'm going to be a year clean, and from the day I went into treatment, I'm going to start reading my diary, what I wrote when I was in treatment, and it'll show me how where I was then to where I was now. And I was thinking about burning it, so I'm glad I didn't burn it. I've kept it, you know. And sometimes if I am struggling, I will go back to my diary and I'll look at some of, you know, where I was struggling badly and how I got through that, you know. And I got through it by expressing how I'm feeling, you know. And I'm more honest with myself now and others, and that's the most important tool in my recovery. That helps me, you know. And Devlin's going back to school next week, and I've had a few people give me a few digs saying I might put him at risk, but I believe that he needs to go back to school because he needs some structure and he needs some routine at the end of the day, you know. And we both need a break from each other, and I love him with all my heart. I'm his dad, you know, that'll never change. But, you know, we're under each other's feet all the time, and he hasn't got his routine where he can go and see his mum or his gran and everything. So hopefully that's going to change for us both, and hopefully I can go fishing next week. I went fishing last week and I caught a tiny little fish, and but I had Devlin with me, so that was good. But on Monday when he goes to school, you know, I'm probably going to go down Watt Park. I'm probably going to sleep for 3 hours and do absolutely nothing, because then I've got some time to myself. Because I have had time where Devlin's been looked after, but then I've been going shopping, and then I've been going to the chemist or stuff like that, so I've not really had time to do anything for me. It's, you know, what we do in normal everyday life. So I'm really looking forward to getting some normality. So I'm going to leave it there. But to anyone that's struggling, you know, just reach out to me. I'm always on Facebook, you know, I'm out. So it's been a pleasure for you to listen to my story and my journey and where I am now. And stay safe and take care.